She thought it was just another rural shift, a quiet nursing job in the backwoods of Georgia. But after a night of paralyzing fear and whispered warnings from an old man with hollow eyes, she began to suspect something about that house was wrong. When her own sleep became the battleground, and other nurses confirmed they'd seen it too, the line between trauma and haunting blurred. Whatever she encountered didn't stay behind. And it never needed permission to follow her home. I never used to think twice about where I slept. I mean, I was always cautious, sure, but I never thought the act of sleeping could be dangerous in and of itself. That changed last fall. I was 37 then, working as a contract nurse for a private eldercare agency. They'd send me all over Georgia, Athens, Macon, even out to Valdosta. That particular weekend, I was covering a 2-night shift for a dementia patient up near Somerville. Real country, quiet, off the highway, all gravel roads and pine trees standing like silent guards. The house they put me in was nice enough. White siding, big porch swing, that old southern charm. The family was polite but distant. The wife barely looked at me when she handed over the key. Said they'd be gone for the weekend, a family reunion up in Tennessee. The husband just nodded and mumbled something about locking the screen door. They left before sunset. I settled into the guest room, small but clean. A twin bed, quilted blanket, lace curtains. There was a window facing the woods. It creaked when I opened it, let in that thick southern night air, sweet with honeysuckle and heavy like something unspoken. The patient, Mr. Ellison, barely spoke. He stared most of the time, either at the corner of the room or out the window, lips twitching like he was whispering to someone I couldn't see. I gave him his meds, fed him soft peas and chicken, and helped him into bed by 8. Then I'd sit in the kitchen with my laptop, doing charting or reading while cicadas screamed outside like they were warning me of something. The second night, it started. I went to bed around 11. Set my alarm for 6. Woke up at 3:14 a.m. exactly, heart pounding like I'd run a mile. The air felt thick. Not just humid, heavy. Like the room had filled with something invisible. I looked around. Nothing moved, but I had this crawling feeling on my skin, like I was being watched. I tried to shrug it off. Lay back down. That's when I realized I couldn't move. Not even my fingers. I was wide awake, completely conscious. I could hear the ticking of the old wall clock, the distant hum of the fridge. But I couldn't lift my arms or scream. My chest felt pinned down. Not by pressure, but by silence. Like the room itself was holding me there. Then I saw it. A shadow in the corner. Not moving. Just there. Tall. Too tall. I thought maybe it was the coat rack, but there was no coat rack in that room. I'd checked earlier, looking for a place to hang my sweater. This thing stood where there was only wallpaper before. I couldn't see its face. Couldn't even be sure it had one. But I knew it was watching me. My eyes stung from not blinking. My mouth was dry, open just a little, like I was trying to say something. My throat burned. I stayed like that for what felt like hours. At some point, my body snapped awake. 1 second I was paralyzed, the next I was sitting up, drenched in sweat. The corner was empty. But the air still smelled strange. Like burnt plastic and old cologne. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. Told myself it was sleep paralysis. That it happens sometimes when your body wakes up before your brain. But it didn't feel like that. I'd had sleep paralysis in college. This was different. It wasn't just being frozen. It felt targeted. When I got up to check on Mr. Ellison, he was already awake. Just sitting in his bed. Staring at the exact corner where the figure had been. His lips moved, mumbling low, like a prayer. When I asked if he needed anything, he turned his head slow and whispered, "It watches everyone who don't belong." I felt something cold twist in my gut. That morning, I took him out on the porch like I was supposed to. Gave him oatmeal and his pills. Tried to focus on the sun coming up over the treeline. But I kept looking back at that guest room window. Like I expected something to be staring back. The third night, I shouldn't have stayed. But the agency said the family wouldn't be back until Monday afternoon, and they paid extra for overnight shifts. I told myself I could power through. Bring coffee. Nap in the recliner instead of the bed. Anything but sleep in that room again. I made it to 10 p.m. before my eyes started to close on their own. Mr. Ellison was already out cold, snoring faintly in his room. I'd left the kitchen light on, brewed strong coffee, and even turned on a gospel station low on my phone to keep myself grounded. Still, sleep tugged at me like it had claws. I laid down on the couch. I don't even remember drifting off. When I woke up, I was back in that bed. Guest room. Quilt pulled up to my chest. Lace curtain breathing soft against the open window. I sat up fast, disoriented, heart pounding. Had I sleepwalked? That made no sense. I'd never done that before, not once in my life. I stood and looked around. Everything was just as I'd left it the night before. Except this time, there was something different about the wallpaper. Small marks near the bottom. Not scratches. More like little finger smudges. As if someone, or something, had been dragging their hands along the wall in the dark. I didn't sleep after that. Just sat on the edge of the bed, shaking, until sunlight cut across the floor. When the family got back that afternoon, I didn't mention any of it. The wife nodded when I told her everything went fine. She didn't ask questions. Just took the keys, thanked me, and stepped aside like I was a passing shadow. The husband offered a polite, safe drive before going inside. As I walked to my car, Mr. Ellison was wheeled to the porch by his son. Our eyes met for a moment. His mouth moved again, silent and slow. I never took another job that rural again. But the story doesn't end there. A few weeks later, I was sent to a facility just outside Decatur. One of those mid-range places, nice lobby, sour-smelling halls. My patient was a retired librarian named Mrs. Kinley. Sweet woman. Sharp, even at 80. We got to talking one night while I was helping her with her knitting, and I told her I'd done home care up near Somerville. Her face changed. You didn't stay off County Road 6, did you? I paused. Actually, yeah. Family named Ellison. She set her needles down slow. That family's land used to be something else, she said. My great-aunt told us stories back in the day. Used to be an old holding site. Before emancipation. Folks were kept there underground. Temporary, they called it, like that made it less evil. I didn't say anything. Just listened. They say the soil remembers, she added, voice soft. And it don't take much to stir it. After that, the sleep got worse. Even back in my own apartment, I started waking up at 3:14 a.m. sharp. Every night. Same paralysis. Same pressure. Sometimes I'd hear footsteps on the carpet. Slow. Careful. Like someone didn't want to wake me, but they wanted me to know they were there. I started sleeping with the lights on. Moved my bed away from the wall. Set up a camera one night, just to prove to myself it was in my head. But the footage the next morning was worse than nothing. It was corrupted. Just a static freeze for exactly 4 minutes and 17 seconds, starting at 3:14. I didn't talk to anyone about it for weeks. Until one day, another nurse I'd worked with briefly, Vanessa, reached out after seeing my name in a scheduling email. She asked if I'd ever done home care up in Somerville. My blood ran cold. She had, too. Same family. Same room. Same paralysis. We met for coffee. spoke in low voices, like the walls could listen. She told me she'd seen something standing in the corner, too. And smelled that same burned plastic scent. When she mentioned waking up somewhere she hadn't fallen asleep, my hands started shaking. "Why us?" I asked. She just shook her head. "I don't think it's about us," she whispered. "I think it's about the land. And we're just reminders it hasn't forgotten. I haven't taken a night shift since. Doesn't matter. Some things don't need you to return to find you. And every night at 3:14, I still wake up. Not paralyzed anymore. Just waiting. Listening. Wondering if one day, I'll open my eyes and the corner won't be empty anymore." She thought the worst part of her insomnia was the loneliness, until she realized someone was using her paralysis against her. What started as eerie sleep episodes turned into something far more invasive, as her white neighbor began exploiting her condition to violate her privacy. The authorities dismissed it, neighbors looked the other way, and he vanished before justice could touch him. But now, no matter where she lives, something always returns at 2:47 a.m., and it's no longer just in her head. I used to think the worst part of my insomnia was the exhaustion. That slow, grinding fatigue that made everything feel distant, like I was watching life happen through fogged-up glass. But after what happened last spring, I learned there are worse things than not sleeping, like waking up and realizing someone's been watching you in your most vulnerable moments. My name's Patrice. I'm 39. Been living in Pine Hollow Estates for almost 5 years. Middle-class suburb, southeast side of Columbus. Nothing fancy, just rows of beige homes, chain-link fences, and neighbors who wave with tight smiles but never say much. I was one of the only black women on my street, maybe the only one who lived alone. Most of the residents were white retirees or young white couples with those tidy lives you see in real estate ads. My house was small, clean, and quiet, just the way I liked it. Then a new neighbor moved in next door. Middle-aged white man. Probably early 50s. Introduced himself as Paul. Said he worked in HVAC, recently divorced, just wanted a fresh start. He had those eyes that never really smile. The kind that scan you, measuring something they don't say out loud. At first, he was polite. Asked if I needed help bringing in groceries. Offered to mow my lawn, which I declined. But over time, the friendliness turned watchful. He'd linger outside while I got my mail. He'd always be at the window when I pulled into my driveway, like he'd been waiting. Once, I caught him standing in the dark on his back porch, no light, no cigarette, just standing. Facing my bedroom window. I tried to ignore it. Gave him no energy. I'd dealt with that kind of attention before. I knew how to disappear into my routines, how to be professionally polite and emotionally distant. But then the sleep paralysis started again. I'd had episodes in my 20s, brief, terrifying spells where I'd wake up frozen, eyes wide open, unable to speak. But this time, it was worse. It started in early March. I'd wake up at 2:47 a.m. every time. Couldn't move. Couldn't scream. Just stare straight ahead while this dense, choking pressure settled over my chest. And always, I felt like someone was in the room. Not watching from a distance. Standing right beside the bed. The first time, I thought maybe I was dreaming. The second, I convinced myself it was stress. But by the third night, I started noticing things out of place in my room. A window latch that had been unlocked. My phone moved slightly on the nightstand. Once, I found the edge of my sheets tucked under in a way I never did. I set up a camera app on my phone. Pointed it at the foot of the bed. The app had motion detection. The next morning, I checked it, nothing. Just static between 2:46 and 2:53. Every single night. I didn't want to think about Paul. Didn't want to consider that he might somehow be involved. But I started noticing things. The way his lights flicked on around the same time I'd wake up. The faint clicking noise I'd sometimes hear outside, like metal brushing against glass. Once, I stepped outside early before work and found cigarette ash under my bedroom window. I don't smoke. Then came the morning I woke up to find a USB stick in my mailbox. No envelope. No note. Just the device, sitting there like a threat. I plugged it into an old laptop I kept offline. There were 3 video files. Each one was dark, grainy, silent. And each showed me, asleep. Frozen. Helpless. My eyes open, mouth slightly parted, breathing shallow. But what made me feel truly sick was the angle. It wasn't from my phone. It was from the outside. Through my bedroom window. Each file ended the same way. The image shifted slightly. A white hand pressed against the glass, faint, almost out of focus, but unmistakable. 5 fingers, splayed wide. Just watching. I called the police. They sent a patrol car, took my statement. But there was no evidence of trespassing, no fingerprints on the USB. No direct proof of who left it. They asked if I had enemies. Suggested maybe it was a prank. One officer asked, real casual, "You sure it wasn't just a bad dream?" I stopped sleeping in my room after that. Started locking the bedroom door from the inside and barricading it with furniture. Slept with a hammer next to me. But the paralysis didn't stop. If anything, it got more vivid. I started hearing things. Breathing. Laughter, low and muffled, like someone stifling amusement in the dark. And every time I woke up, I felt violated. Like I'd been touched. One morning, I found a note taped to my front door. Just a piece of paper, typed in bold Arial font, "You're very still when you sleep." That was the morning I bought security cameras. Installed one at the front, one in the backyard, one inside the hallway outside my bedroom. And I prayed they'd finally catch what I was starting to suspect was real. Because I wasn't just being watched. I was being studied. The cameras made me feel safer for exactly one night. That first evening, I slept in the living room, TV on low, all lights off except one lamp. The paralysis didn't come. I even managed 5 hours of real sleep. Woke up hopeful, almost ashamed I hadn't done it sooner. I reviewed the footage over coffee, scanning for motion alerts. Nothing. But the second night, it returned. Woke at 2:47 a.m. sharp. Couldn't move. Couldn't even blink fast enough to cry. But this time, I heard my door open. Not a creak. A deliberate, careful turn of the handle. The soft whisper of my hallway carpet compressing under weight. The unmistakable scrape of knuckles along drywall. But I couldn't move. Couldn't scream. Only listen. The next morning, I ran to the hallway camera. My hands shook as I clicked through the timeline. At 2:48 a.m., the screen went black. 10 full minutes. Then it flickered back on, normal again. My hallway, untouched. But in the bottom corner, just before the feed resumed, I caught it. A flash of something white. Like a shirt. Or skin. I printed the frame. Took it to the police again. They said the footage was inconclusive. No forced entry. Nothing identifiable. They advised me to consider staying with family for a bit. When I asked if they questioned Paul, the officer exhaled hard and said, "Ma'am, we don't have probable cause to harass your neighbor." Harass? I asked. He's been watching me sleep. The cop leaned in, lowered his voice. You got any proof of that? That's when I realized I was alone in this. I started changing up my routine. Left lights on all night. Slept in short, jittery intervals, sometimes on the floor, sometimes in my car. I even put tape on my window frames, clear strips that would peel if disturbed. Every morning, I checked them. On April 12th, the tape on my bedroom window was split clean down the middle. I didn't bother going to work that day. I sat in my car, shaking, engine idling, trying to decide if I should check into a hotel, pack my things, or just leave town completely. But something told me not to run, not yet. I needed something real. Something they couldn't ignore. So I made a plan. That night, I played into the routine. Bedroom lights off. Windows slightly open. Curtains pulled halfway. I left a decoy under the covers, pillows, wig, old hoodie. I parked my car 2 blocks away and watched from a neighbor's yard camera I'd hidden earlier. At 2:42 a.m., movement. Figure approached from behind my house. Male. Average build. Baseball cap. Gloves. He crouched below the window, then slowly stood, just enough to press his face against the glass. Stared at the bed for a full minute. Then he raised his phone. Flashed it twice, like testing light. Then, he unzipped something. I couldn't see what, but I heard the faint sound of a camera click. He was photographing me. Or who he thought was me. I waited until he disappeared into the night, then I ran back to the house. Locked everything, and backed up the footage 5 times. I sent copies to the police, the HOA, and a lawyer friend. That was the last time I saw Paul. 2 days later, a moving truck showed up. He left without a word. The house went quiet. Empty. The HOA never addressed it. The police never followed up. No arrest. No charges. No justice. But he left behind something worse. Because ever since, I haven't stopped waking up at 2:47. Even when I moved 2 towns over. Even when I bought blackout curtains, a new mattress, and a deadbolt for every room. I still wake up. Paralyzed. Still feel the air change. Still hear that slow breath, like someone savoring the silence beside me. And some mornings, when I check the window, I swear I can still see it. The faint outline of 5 fingers. Pressed against the glass. I was arrested in my own home after a suspicious anonymous call. The officer who watched me get cuffed was the same man who haunted my nights, watching, whispering, and reminding me. I can still get in. This isn't a ghost story. It's a nightmare in uniform. I was 58 when it started again. Hadn't had sleep paralysis in almost 20 years, not since my late wife passed. Back then, I thought it was grief, stress, all the weight of life piling up. But what happened last winter proved it was something else. Something deeper. And this time, it almost got me killed. My name's Leonard. Born and raised in Alabama, though I've been living out in North Carolina for the last decade, near a little town called Clayton. Quiet place. Too quiet sometimes. Folks keep to themselves, and most of them prefer it that way. I worked sanitation most of my life. Retired 3 years ago. These days I mostly stay home, take walks, feed the birds, try to stay out of trouble. I live alone now. 1-story rental on Maplewood Drive, end of the cul-de-sac. Mixed neighborhood, though it leans white. My neighbors don't say much. The ones who do usually ask if I'm the new lawn guy. The episode started up again in January. Coldest stretch we'd had in years. Nights dropped into the teens, and I'd wake up at 3:06 a.m. like someone had snapped their fingers inside my skull. Couldn't move. Couldn't breathe right. My eyes would open, just barely, and I'd be frozen in place, my body heavy like it was underwater. At first, I thought it was just me. A man my age, alone in a drafty house, body slowing down with time. But something felt wrong. Like someone was in the room. Not watching from the shadows, but leaning in. Close. The first time, I thought I saw a face near mine. Pale skin, buzz cut. Then it vanished. I woke up gasping, heart hammering. Told myself it was a dream. The second time, I smelled it. Cologne, not mine. Something sharp and cheap, like what boys used to wear back in the 80s. It lingered for hours after I woke up. I searched the house from top to bottom. Nothing disturbed. Nothing stolen. I set up a motion detector in the hallway. It never went off. But the episodes got more vivid. I started hearing things. Breathing. Footsteps. Keys jingling. Then, one morning in February, I found my front door ajar. Just slightly. No sign of forced entry. My spare keys were still on the hook. I reported it to the police. A young white officer came by. Name was Connolly. Looked about 30. Polite, but condescending. He kept glancing around my place like he expected to see needles or liquor bottles. Asked me if I'd been drinking. Asked if I'd fallen asleep with the door open. I told him I wasn't stupid. He chuckled and said, "No one's saying that, sir." He didn't file a report. Just took notes on a yellow pad and left. 3 nights later, I had the worst episode yet. I woke at 3:06. Couldn't move. Mouth slightly open, throat dry. I was on my back, like always, but this time I could see the hallway light on, faint, yellow, flickering. I never leave it on. Then I heard it. Boots. Heavy footsteps, deliberate, walking toward my bedroom. I tried to scream. Nothing. The figure stepped into the doorway. It was Connolly. Same officer. Uniform. No flashlight. Just standing there, staring at me. Not moving. Then he leaned forward, real slow, and whispered, "This ain't your neighborhood." My eyes were wide, heart jackhammering. I couldn't even blink. Then everything went black. When I woke, I was still in bed, but the hallway light was off. I checked every door, every lock. Nothing disturbed. I told myself it had to be a dream. Maybe I'd seen his face recently and my brain stitched it in. But I didn't believe it. Not really. Because the next morning, I found mud prints on the carpet. Big ones. Size 12 boots. Leading from the hallway to the side door. The same door Connolly passed by when he checked in on me. I didn't sleep the next night. Or the one after. But eventually, exhaustion got the better of me. And that's when everything fell apart. Because the next time I woke up, frozen in bed, paralyzed, heart thudding, I wasn't alone. This time, there were flashing lights outside. Red and blue. I could see them strobing through my closed eyelids. Then came the bang. A voice yelling through the door, "Police! Come out now!" I was still paralyzed. Still unable to move. I couldn't speak. Couldn't explain. I could only listen as they broke down the door, stormed through my home, and dragged me out of my own bed. Still in my underwear. Still frozen inside. Like the dream had swallowed me whole. They said they got a call. Suspicious person inside a residence. When I asked them later who made the call, they said it was anonymous. But I already knew. Because Officer Connolly was there. Watching me from behind the others, arms crossed, like he was proud. They yanked me from the bed and cuffed me before I could catch my breath. I tried to explain. Tried to say it was my house. My name was on the lease. My photo on the fridge. My clothes in the closet. But the one who held me, an older white sergeant with gray stubble, just kept saying, we'll figure it out at the station. They didn't let me put on shoes. Didn't let me call anyone. Didn't let me lock the front door. When they shoved me into the back of the squad car, my neighbor across the street, a white woman named Nancy, was standing on her porch with a robe on and coffee in hand. She looked at me like I'd confirmed something she always suspected. It took them 6 hours to process me. 6 hours before someone bothered to check the address against the system and realize I did live there. 6 hours before I was allowed to speak to someone who treated me like a human being. When they let me out, Connolly wasn't there. But they never apologized. Just told me there'd been a misunderstanding and that procedures had to be followed. My wrists were bruised from the cuffs. My back ached from being shoved face first onto my own floor. I walked home. The front door was wide open. Lights still on. No one had bothered to secure it. Inside, drawers were pulled open, closets left ajar. Like they'd been searching for something, anything, to make their suspicion feel justified. I sat down on the floor of the living room, knees pulled in, and tried to process what had happened. But all I could think about was that voice. This ain't your neighborhood. I tried to move on. Tried to go back to my routines, grocery store, morning walks, watching the birds. But I couldn't sleep. Because the paralysis came back stronger than ever. Every time I closed my eyes, I'd wake up frozen, 3:06 a.m., with a presence leaning in close. No face. Just breath. Just a low hum, like someone whispering a secret I couldn't quite hear. And some mornings, I'd find things moved. A chair pulled an inch from the table. My toothbrush wet. The faint smell of that cheap cologne hanging in the air. I called the landlord. Asked to change the locks. He said sure, but 2 days later, the new keys didn't fit. Had to call a locksmith myself. Paid cash. Still, the feeling didn't leave. One morning, I opened my mailbox and found a photo. Printed on glossy paper. No envelope. It showed me, asleep in bed. Face slack, mouth open. Taken through my bedroom window. Time stamped, 3:06 a.m. My heart stopped. I checked every window. Every camera. Nothing. No footage. No alerts. I reported it to the police again. A different officer came this time. Young black man. He listened. Took notes. Said he'd file it. But when I asked about Connolly, if he was still on the force, the officer's expression tightened. He transferred. Month ago. No forwarding info. That night, I left the lights on. Sat in my chair, hammer in one hand, phone in the other. But I must have dozed off. Because I woke up, stiff and cold, at 3:06 a.m. Paralyzed. Eyes open. And this time, someone was inside. Standing in the doorway. Not moving. Not speaking. Just watching. I couldn't make out the face, but I knew that stance. Broad shoulders. Hands on his belt. Boots planted like he belonged there. It was him. I tried to scream. Tried to lift a finger. Nothing. Then he stepped forward. Bent down slowly. And whispered, so close I could feel his breath. I can still get in. I must have blacked out. When I came to, the house was empty again. Everything exactly where I left it. Except the front door. It was locked. From the inside. I don't know where he went after he transferred. Don't know if he's stalking someone else now. Or if he ever really left. But I do know this. The paralysis doesn't come every night anymore. Only when I let myself believe I'm safe. Only when I let myself sleep deeply. Only when I forget that sometimes, the thing watching you in the dark isn't a ghost. It's just a man in uniform with a key. She said God told her to protect the children. But they weren't her children, and it wasn't her house. The police called it a misunderstanding. The neighbors called it confusion. But I still wake up some nights, wondering how she got that key, and how long she stood there before I noticed. I live just outside Tulsa, in a quiet neighborhood mostly filled with retirees and young professionals. My wife, Alicia, and I moved in 2 years ago with our twin daughters. It's a safe area, quiet, clean, with tree-lined streets and good schools. We keep to ourselves mostly, though we wave at the neighbors, mow our lawn, and keep our porch light on at night like everybody else. That night started normal. We'd had barbecue ribs for dinner, the girls fell asleep watching cartoons, and I passed out on the couch halfway through the 10 o'clock news. Alicia woke me around midnight to get to bed. I double-checked the front door was locked, shut the windows in the kitchen, and turned off the hallway light. I remember the house felt unusually warm, humid, like the AC was just a second too late behind the summer air. Around 3:30 a.m., I woke up because of a sound I couldn't place. At first I thought it was one of the girls, maybe a nightmare or a trip to the bathroom. But the house was quiet. No footsteps, no whispering, just that low sound again, a creak. Slow, deliberate. I sat up and listened harder. The creak came again, downstairs, from the front hallway. It wasn't the house settling. This was movement. I reached for the bat I keep behind the bedroom door and eased it out without waking Alicia. My heart thumped so loud I thought it might give me away. I stepped slowly down the stairs, skipping the third one because it always groans. I could feel the humidity on my skin like sweat under a shirt. That's when I saw her. She was standing just inside our front door, barefoot on the hardwood, wearing a long white nightgown that clung to her like wet paper. Blonde hair, messy, shoulder length. Maybe late 40s. Her arms were out slightly at her sides, and she was whispering something I couldn't make out. I froze. My first thought wasn't danger, it was confusion. Was she sleepwalking? Was she hurt? She looked lost. "Ma'am?" I said, not loud, but clear enough. She didn't startle. Didn't even blink. Her lips kept moving, whispering the same soft string of words again and again. Her eyes were locked onto the hallway, past me. That's when I realized she was looking toward the bedrooms. I took one step forward, bat in hand. "Ma'am, you're in the wrong house." She finally looked at me. Her face tightened like I'd ruined something holy. "You're not supposed to be here," she said. I stared at her, my grip tightening. "This is my house." She took a small step forward, then another. I stepped between her and the hallway. That's when she screamed. Loud and sudden, like someone flipped a switch. It was sharp enough to wake the girls, I was sure of it. My stomach dropped. Lights flipped on upstairs. Alicia's voice shouted down, scared. I yelled for her to call 911. The woman's scream turned to wailing, high, broken sobs. She dropped to her knees, muttering something about a black mass and saving the children. Her fingers trembled as she reached toward me. I didn't move. I just stood there, afraid to get closer, afraid to back away. Because either she was having some kind of breakdown, or this was something worse. Something deliberate. The cops showed up 9 minutes later. But that wasn't the end of it. They kept her outside in the squad car while 2 officers came in to take statements. One of them asked if we'd had any recent disputes with neighbors. The other asked if I had any video cameras installed. I told them we didn't. It was the one thing I kept putting off. Alicia wrapped the girls in blankets and sat with them on the stairs. They were scared, but quiet. I couldn't stop shaking. Not from fear exactly. From the sense that something wasn't adding up. The woman didn't bring a weapon. Didn't take anything. Didn't even try to run. But she'd unlocked the front door. That part got stuck in my head like a splinter. I knew I'd locked it. I always do. The officer confirmed no signs of forced entry. Said she must have known the layout of the house, or had the wrong address. But even that didn't make sense. She knew too much. She was barefoot, but didn't seem surprised by where anything was. She didn't ask questions. She just walked in like she was expected. They asked if I knew her. I didn't. Neither did Alicia. But the last cop gave me a strange look when I said that. I could see it in his eyes. You sure about that? They took her to a nearby hospital for psychiatric evaluation and told us we could file a restraining order once things were processed. Probably a mental break, they said. She's sleepwalking, not dangerous. But the word probably didn't sit right. The next morning, the HOA president, Mr. Laskin, came by. Said he'd heard about the commotion. He seemed concerned, until he saw me. Then his tone cooled, and the small talk came in. We've always had a peaceful neighborhood, he said. People get confused sometimes. I nodded, not saying what I wanted to say. That night, Alicia found something. She was folding the laundry when she noticed a blue ribbon tucked inside one of the girls' dresser drawers. It wasn't ours. None of the kids owned anything like it. We didn't think much of it at first, maybe from daycare, maybe a friend's, but Alicia checked the hallway camera on her phone. Turns out she had installed one without telling me. Just inside the foyer. The footage was short. Just 58 seconds. The woman stands on the porch, staring at the door. Then she reaches into a pocket and pulls out a key. A key. She unlocks the door and walks inside, slow and silent. The file ended there. We brought it to the police. The officer we spoke to, a different one this time, promised to forward it to the detective. No one called us back. 2 weeks later, I drove by a neighborhood block meeting I wasn't invited to. Saw the woman sitting on a bench with another neighbor. Laughing. Her hair was combed. Her dress floral. She looked like someone's aunt after church. When she spotted my car, she froze. Then she smiled. Not a guilty smile. Not embarrassed. Like she'd seen something in me and already decided it didn't matter. We haven't had another break-in since. But I changed the locks. Bought a camera for every room. Keep the porch light on all night now. And I don't sleep deeply anymore. Because sometimes, at 3:30 a.m., I wake up. And for a split second, I expect to see her again, standing at the edge of the bed, holding a key. Thanks so much for watching. Your support truly means the world to me. Every like, every comment helps this channel grow and keeps me going. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button and share your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a new upload. My dream right now is to reach 100 subscribers, and with your help, I know it's possible. See you in the next one.